very same day, actually, as the pastime with the wives of the Brahmanas that come to bring food to Krishna and Balaram and the cowherd boys. It's a very special pastime. There was some discussion about it this morning. Where as soon as Krishna finishes this pastime with the wives of the Brahmanas, they continue with the cowherd boys along the side of Govardhana Hill, and they find Nanda Maharaj, who is engaged in a big yajna. See some ladies in the background carrying some articles that are meant for the yajna. So Krishna is a little boy, 7 years old, asking his father to please describe to him the ceremony or the yajna that's about to take place. And he asks some very relevant questions. He says, is this something that's enjoined in the Vedas, or is it a family tradition? Two different. Because a family tradition doesn't mean it's a zero, but it doesn't have the same weight as enjoined in the Vedas. And if it's enjoined in the Vedas, Krishna wants to know from his father, what's the purpose? Because if you do something that's according to the Vedas, but you don't know the purpose, you don't get the full effect. Then he says to his father, it's the duty of the father to instruct the son, so please instruct me thoroughly, and no secrets, don't hold anything back, because I need to learn. So then his father gives this nice teaching about the importance of honoring Indra, because we're cowherds and we're dependent upon the rain. And this year, Indra supplied nice amounts of rain. And so we're indebted to Indra. And so we're making a sacrifice to Indra in honor and reciprocation with that which he's given. It's a very nice teaching. It's not directly from this passage of Bhagavatam, but it comes from Ramayana, without all the detail. When Mainaka arises from the sea, there's an exchange between Mainaka and Hanuman. And one of the things that Mainaka says is the essence of all dharma is gratitude. Nice teaching. And Mainaka is feeling gratitude to Vayu because Vayu protected him. And he's feeling, and the ocean personified is feeling gratitude to an ancestor of Ram, and Hanuman's in service of Ram for different reasons. And so the essence of Dharma is gratitude. So this is part of Vedic culture. You have gratitude, and you reciprocate with that which you have received. And that was his logic. And then Krishna gave a different logic. And Krishna's different logic was, we're not dependent upon Indra. Indra's dependent upon good karma. And if you do good karma, then he gives good results. And if you don't do good karma, he doesn't give good results. So karma is above Indra. So we don't need Indra. We need to, rather, all these ingredients that you've gathered, that's in the front area here, all these ingredients that have been gathered for the yajna, it should be used as an offering to Govardhana Hill, because we're dependent upon Govardhana Hill. Mentioned with all the things that are mentioned, the Govardhana Hill supplies us so many things. Since Lord Indra cannot in any way change the destiny of human beings, which is born of their own nature, why should people worship him? May a sacrifice for the pleasure of the cows, brahmanas, and Govardhana Hill begin with all the paraphernalia collected for worshipping Indra. Let this sacrifice be performed. Now, Krishna had a contemplation, one of his many purposes. One of his many purposes was, he knew that Indra was prideful, and Krishna doesn't like pride. in the hearts of his devotees, an interested devotee, but he was prideful, so he wanted to remove the pride of Indra, and so he arranged, don't perform the yagi for Indra. Let us worship Govardhana Hill, and the cows, and the brahmanas. Let many different kinds of food be cooked, sweet rice and vegetable soups. Many kinds of fancy cakes, both baked and fried, should be prepared. All the available milk products should be taken for this sacrifice. Celebrated part of Govardhana Puja is all the food offerings. But the food offerings are offered to Govardhana or Krishna. The brahmanas who are learned in Vedic mantras must properly invoke the sacrificial fires. Then you should feed the priests with nicely prepared food and reward them with cows and other gifts. And then, after giving food to everyone else, including the fallen souls such as dogs and dog eaters, you should give grass to the cows and then present your offerings, respectful offerings, to Govardhana Hill. Everyone did what Krishna said, because that's what you do if you're a Brijvasi. You love Krishna, whatever Krishna wants, that's what you do. As everyone had eaten, after everyone had eaten to his satisfaction, you should dress and decorate yourselves handsomely, and then circumambulate the cows, brahmanas, sacrificial fires, and Govardhana Hill. There's Krishna pointing to Govardhana Hill. There's Nanda Maharaj looking in the direction that Krishna is pointing. And so that's what they decide to do. They did all that Krishna had recommended. Here's an Abhishek of Govardhana Hill, which we do in Govardhana Puja. They arranged for the brahmanas to recite auspicious Vedic mantras, and using paraphernalia that had been intended for Indra's sacrifice, they presented offerings to Govardhana Hill and the brahmanas with reverential respect. There's a nice drawing. They're giving grass to the cows. Now you probably heard about how the Goshala of Nanda Maharaj is decked out. It's like a palace, like you see here. It's, it's like a palace with all the details of ornaments and marble and colors and everything. Then, placing the cows, bulls, and calves in front of them, they circumambulated Govardhana Hill. This is the first Govardhana Parikrama. Again, another drawing of feeding of the cows. Down to the lower right, there's more feeding of the cows. And the next is the first Govardhana Parikrama. As the beautifully ornamented cowherd ladies followed along, riding on wagons drawn by oxen, they sang the glories of Lord Krishna, and their songs mingled with the brahmanas chanting and benedictions. A nice cooperative team effort. And then came the mountains of cooked food that were offered to Govardhana Hill. Now, in the back, in that blue, looks like a little temple, I guess that's Govardhana, or Hari. There's Krishna Balaram, and the mountains of rice and ghee and cakes and everything. Now, the place where the offering was made is shown here. So, many of you have been to Vrindavan. Many of you have been to Govardhana Hill. This stretch of hill is very long. It's 2 miles long, and the Anarkut filled up this whole stretch. There's a lot called Anior. Krishna after the offerings were made to Govardhana Hill, there he is, assuming a huge form of Hari, and declared in a loud, booming voice, I am Govardhana Mountain. And even Krishna came before Hari and offered obeisances to Hari. Pretty good. So now we have three Haris. One is Krishna, the other is Sri Hari, who is accepting the offerings, and behind him is another Hari. Govardhana Hill himself is also Hari. Just see how this hill has appeared in person and bestowed mercy upon us. So Hari ate everything. He made abundant offerings, just as we do in ISKCON, in Govardhana Puja. There's a competition each year. They have to make more offerings and more offerings. Right? So it made big offerings. There's Nanda making the offering, and here's Sri Hari eating everything. And after he ate everything, he said, Harior. You know that one, right? Harior is a local language that means I want more. I want more. So what did they do? They ran to their storerooms and got whatever they had and made more. They offered that to Hari. And he ate it all. And he said, Harior, Harior, I want more. So what did they do? They asked the Brahmins what to do. Balaram said, I know what to do. And he found one tulsi leaf and offered the tulsi leaf in the hand of Hari, and he was satisfied. Meanwhile, Indra understood that his sacrifice had been put aside. He became furious with Nanda and the Brijvasis, and they were accepting Krishna as their worshipable Lord. And they stopped his offering. So let's see if the sound works properly. That's thunder, in case you can tell. It's going to happen again. It's good. Pretty good picture of a thundercloud. So he called into his presence Samvartaka, and Samvartaka is amongst the weapons of Indra. It's where the downfall of rain comes at the time of annihilation. At the time of annihilation, there's a series of things. There's a long drought, long period of time, everything gets dry. Next, fire, the bottom of the universe. Fire rises, everything is engulfed in flames, and it just becomes ashes. And then comes the rain, and the ashes get dissolved. That's the partial, and then the final cosmic annihilation, similar sequence. So Samvartaka is kind of nothing to do until that time comes. He called Samvartaka, go remove their pride and bring their animals to destruction. I will follow you riding on my elephant and taking with me powerful wind gods to decimate the cowherd village of Nanda Maharaj. He gets really riled up. And there's Samvartaka pouring down rain on the poor Brijvasis. And there's Indra with his wind gods, and the sun is hiding behind a cloud. And on Indra's order, the clouds of universal destruction released untimely from their bonds, went to the pastures of Nanda Maharaj. There they began to torment the inhabitants, powerfully pouring torrents of rain upon them. Clouds blazed with lightning bolts and roared with thunder as they hurled down hailstones. As the clouds released torrents of rain as thick as massive columns, the earth was submerged in flood. That's what happens at the time of flooding. High ground could no longer be distinguished from low. The cows and other animals shivering from the excessive rain and wind, and the cowherd men and ladies pained by the cold approached Lord Govinda for shelter. Krishna, Krishna, oh unfortunate one, please deliver the cows. They're not asking for themselves. Their cowards are asking about the cows. From the wrath of Indra, oh Lord, you are so affectionate to your pure devotees, save us also. But their first concern goes to the cows. The cows and other animals shivering from the excessive rain and wind, he read this word. They took shelter from Govinda. Seeing the inhabitants of his Goloka rendered practically unconscious by the onslaught of hail and blasting wind, Supreme Lord Hari understood that this was the work of angry Indra. Since the demigods are endowed with the mode of goodness, false pride, considering oneself the Lord, should certainly not affect them. This is a very detailed painting. The water is rising, and Krishna is just beginning to lift the hill, and they're getting shelter on the right side by getting underneath the hill. But those that aren't under the hill yet, they're really in trouble. And you notice this, the Sudarshan chakra zooming around up here? I'll show you. There's Sudarshan chakra. So one of the explanations of why it remained dry underneath the hill, when outside of the hill it was flooded, is because Krishna had Sudarshan chakra travel real fast around the hill and kept it dry. And at the end of 7 days, Sudarshan was tired. So he took rest at Chakaleshwara, which is around the side of Manasikanda. Chakaleshwara is the area in Govardhana town. And there's a deity of Lord Shiva there, Chakaleshwara Mahadev, that's right next to where Sanatana Goswami stayed. Okay, back to Govardhana. Sri Krishna said to himself, because we have stopped his sacrifice, Indra has caused this unusually fierce, unseasonable rain, together with terrible winds and hail. By my mystic power, I will completely counteract this disturbance by Indra. When I break the false prestige of those bereft of goodness, my purpose is to bring them relief. He's chastising, but correcting, and Indra's got some problems sometimes. Carried away. I must therefore protect the cowherd community by my transcendental potency. I am their shelter. I am their master, and indeed they are my own family. After all, I've taken a vow to protect my devotees. So in the background you see the downpour of rain coming, and the lightning. And Krishna is concerned about the welfare of the devotees. They're at his feet asking for help. With my mystic power, I protect the people of Braj who have taken shelter of me, who consider me their Lord, and who are all my relatives. This is my vow. Lord Krishna, You can look over it with background music. Lord Krishna, who is himself Vishnu, picked up Govardhana Hill with one hand and held it aloft just as easily as a child holds up a mushroom. And there's a zillion paintings. It's just hard to select, which ones go into a presentation, but you see the rain coming down the sides of Govardhana Hill. But everybody underneath Govardhana Hill is dry. The Lord addressed the cowherd community, "O mother, O father, O residents of Braja, if you wish, you may come under this hill with your cows." And so they do. Now the whole of Braja is a big area. So it's said that when Krishna touched the Govardhana Hill, it expanded by ecstasy of his touch. In fact, when the thunderbolts and torrents of rain and everything else hit the side of Govardhana Hill, it didn't feel anything because it was so much in ecstasy. And this just is, I'm not moving this is just set up this way, showing pictures. There they are coming out of the flood with their cows, and Krishna's protecting them from the inundation of rain of Indra. There he is, standing on a little mound, and right behind him, of course, is Balaram. Over on the left side, that's Nanda and Yashoda. And then some of the gopis are casting sidelong glances, and Krishna's glancing back at them, and all of those nice exchanges of loving dealing. One of the many purposes Krishna wanted to fulfill, besides curbing the pride of Indra, was fulfilling the desire of the residents of Vrindavan to be with Krishna uninterruptedly. Because the way that this works is there are 8 phases of the day, 24 hours of the day, and according to different phases of the day, different devotees are with Krishna, but the others are not. And then when they're not, they're feeling great separation, and then eventually they come together, but those that are with him are not. So there was a desire to be with him uninterruptedly, so he arranged it for 7 days and 7 nights. Uninterrupted association and darshan of Krishna. And that's one of the features of the Govardhana Lila that makes it so wonderful. That's my opinion. Because the boat is not only circumnavigating the hill, and that's lots of fun, and kirtan and dancing like Krishna did originally, but it's the mood of being with Krishna uninterruptedly. The residents of Vrindavan have that pleasure. By continuously drinking the nectar of the beauty and sweetness of Sri Krishna, the residents of Vrindavan felt no hunger, thirst, or fatigue. And Lord Krishna, by seeing their beautiful forms, also forgot about eating, drinking, and sleeping. And he says 7. What little 7-year-old boy doesn't eat for 7 days, or sleep, or take even water? Again, celebrated pastime, many different paintings of this wonderful pastime. Some of them are seen duplicates. You should have no fear that this mountain will fall from my hand. And don't be afraid of the wind and rain, for your deliverance from these afflictions has already been arranged. Their minds thus pacified by Lord Krishna, they all entered beneath the hill, where they found ample room for themselves and all their cows, wagons, servants, and priests, and all other members of the community as well. Lord Krishna, forgetting hunger and thirst, and putting aside all considerations of personal pleasure, stood there, holding up the hill for 7 days, as the people of Braja gazed at him. Lord Krishna held up the mountain while his praises were chanted by the residents of Vrindavan, all of whom had now had the opportunity to dwell together with him, and who glanced at him very joyfully, with joyful and amazed eyes. Thus the cowherd men and women were all elated. Out of loving affection, they opened their eyes wide. Now in this painting we see Indra up there, and he's observing all this. And he's wondering, what have I done? Krishna's lifting of Govardhana Hill is full of fascinating details, and has for thousands of years remained one of his most famous pastimes. Of course, there's embellishments like anything. There's the cowherd men, Nanda Maharaj thinking, Krishna's thinking he's holding up the hill, but actually it's big. This way. So Krishna, seeing that mood of Nanda, he started lowering the hill. His hand was shaking. They were panicking. He lifted the hill back. Or another famous pastime here, while Krishna is lifting the hill, he's looking out of the corner of his eyes with the gopis, at the gopis, and his hand is trembling, and Balaram knows why his hand is trembling, out of his loving ecstasy in relation to the gopis. Or here's a ISKCON painting. The gopis are having a great time. Radharani is in her queen throne, and they're enjoying being with Krishna in this way. Govardhana has many different features. There's Indra again up on top. Ordinarily a large cowherd community, which included many thousands of cows, 900,000 cows, calves, bulls, could not fit under the base of a medium-sized hill like Sri Govardhana. However, because the hill was in ecstasy, being touched by the hand of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it acquired inconceivable power, and even felt the hundreds of deadly thunderbolts thrown on its back by angry Indra to be offerings of soft, fragrant flowers. At times, Sri Govardhana was not even aware that the thunderbolts were striking. From Harivangsha, the Acharyas have quoted Krishna himself saying, Sri Govardhan can give shelter to the three worlds, but to speak of the simple land of Braja. When Indra's attack began and Krishna lifted the hill, the deer, wild hogs, and other animals and birds standing on the hill's flanks climbed up to its peaks, and even they did not experience the slightest distress. The inhabitants of Vrindavan and their animals remained there for 1 week without being disturbed by hunger, thirst, or any discomfort. Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur points out that 7 days of continuous rain from the Samvartika clouds failed to flood the district of Mathura, because the Supreme Lord, simply by his potency, immediately dried up the water as it fell to the ground. So there's two explanations: the Sudarshan Chakra and just Krishna's power. And so many paintings of the past. Look at those little cowherd boys, they look really cute. Both on the left and the right. When Indra was pictured up there on the right side of the screen there, when Indra observed this exhibition of Lord Krishna's mystic power, he became most astonished. Pulled down from his platform of false pride and his intentions thwarted, he ordered his clouds to desist. And that's what you're seeing in the painting on the right. There's Indra, in the bottom right, offering prostrated obeisances before Krishna, Airavata, elephant behind him. And up above, the clouds are parting, the sun is shining, and Krishna said, "My dear cowherd men," first truth, "please go out with your wives, children, possessions. Give up your fear. The wind and rain have stopped, and the river's high waters have subsided." The resident Vrindavan, overwhelmed with ecstatic love, came forward to greet Sri Krishna according to their individual relationships. Demigods sang his praises and showered flowers. A great universal festival took place. Demigods played their conch shells and kettle drums and began to sing. The background is they're showering flowers. In case you didn't figure it out. Okay. When all living creatures looked on, the Supreme Personality of Godhead put down the hill in its original place, just as it had stood before. Now that's the temple that you couldn't see so well in the previous painting. This is a photograph of the temple of Gopal, later became Srinathji temple, before he moved. Surrounded by his loving cowherd boyfriends and Balaram, Krishna went off to the place where he had been tending his cows. The cowherd girls returned to their homes, singing joyfully about the lifting of Govardhana Hill and other glorious deeds performed by Lord Krishna, who had so deeply touched their hearts. After Krishna lifted Govardhana Hill and thus protected the inhabitants of Braja from the terrible rainfall, Surabhi, the mother of the cows, came from her planet to see Krishna. She was accompanied by Indra. Now, what planet is Surabhi's planet? Ever wondered about that? Where does she come from? So, Acharyas explain, in the heavenly realm, there's the spiritual realm, but there's a counterpart of the spiritual realm in the heavenly realm, and Surabhi has a planet in the heavenly realm. So that's where Indra went, to bring Surabhi. So she came, and Indra offered his prayers, which Krishna gratefully accepted. Indra was very ashamed of having offended the Lord. Approaching him in a solitary place, Indra fell down and laid his helmet, whose effulgence was as brilliant as the sun, upon the Lord's lotus feet. Because Indra's prayers are very special. Indra had now heard and seen the transcendental power of the omnipotent Krishna, and his false pride in being the Lord of the three worlds was defeated. Holding his hands together in supplication, he addressed the Lord as follows. And here's just some of his prayers at all. Your transcendental form, a manifestation of pure goodness, is undisturbed by change, shining with knowledge and devoid of passion and ignorance. In you does not exist the mighty flow of the modes of material nature, which is based on illusion and ignorance. How then could there exist in you the symptoms of an ignorant person, such as greed, lust, and envy, which are produced by one's previous involvement in material existence, and which cause one to become further entangled in material existence? And yet, as the Supreme Lord, you impose punishment to protect religious principles and to curb down the wicked. There's Airavata dumping some water on Krishna. You are the father and spiritual master of the entire universe, and also its supreme controller. Your insurmountable time imposing punishment upon the sinful for their own benefit. Indeed, in your various incarnations, selected by your own free will, you act decisively to remove false pride of those who presume themselves master of this world. That's himself. Even fools like me, who proudly think themselves universal lords, quickly give up their conceit and directly take to the path of spiritual, spiritually progressive. When they see you are fearless, even in the face of time, thus you punish the mischievous only to instruct them. Engrossed in pride over my ruling power, ignorant of your majesty, I offended you. O Lord, may you forgive me. My intelligence was bewildered, but that my consciousness never again be so impure. You descend into this world, O transcendent Lord, to destroy the warlords who burden the earth and create many terrible disturbances. O Lord, you simultaneously act for the welfare of those who faithfully serve your lotus feet. Obeisances unto you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Great Soul, who are all-pervading and who reside in the hearts of all. My obeisances unto you, Krishna, the chief of the Yadu dynasty. Unto him who assumes transcendental bodies according to the desires of his devotees. Unto him whose form is itself pure consciousness. Unto him who is everything, who is the seed of everything, and who is the soul of all creatures, I offer my obeisances. So, what does Krishna do? Having appealed to Lord Krishna, Mother Surabhi performed his bathing ceremony with her own milk. Indra, ordered by Aditi and the other mothers of the demigods, anointed Lord Krishna with heavenly Ganges water from the trunk of Indra's elephant carrier, Airavata. Okay. In the company of the demigods and great sages, Indra coronated Lord Krishna and gave him the name Govinda. Now that's one reference, and another reference is Surabhi gave him the name Govinda. And this was enacted for the benefit of Indra and for the pleasure of the residents of Vrindavan to have Krishna's uninterrupted association and to create a wonderful festival for us so that we can have Govardhana Puja every year and circumambulate our little Govardhana hills wherever we are. Or on Govardhana Puja Day, I've not been there because I don't like crowds, but I was told it's wall-to-wall people all around Govardhana Hill all day long. Pandemic or not. There's a nice photograph of a Govardhana Shiva. And that ends the pastime. So there's a few photographs. This is again the Anior area, because there's a town of Anior, but this is the area preceding it. Check it out. This is the summer season. This is the rainy season. This is the summer season. And it's a very tall area of the mountain compared to the other parts of the mountain. And some Govardhana Shilas. Quick summary: in Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur taught that Mayapur is the counterpart of Govardhana Lila of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. And in the Chaitanya Mat, he established a Govardhana Hill. And that's a photograph of the Govardhana Hill in the back side of the temple compound. And here's part of the peripheral path around Govardhana Hill. Later, the Gopal deity that was found by Madhavendra Puri became Srinathji in Nathanjora in photographs. So that's it for Govardhana pastimes, different photographs and pictures. We got a lot of mercy. On the flip side is, you see that Shila has a big impression. It's said it's called the Airavata Shila, and it's said that's where Airavata came in from landing. And it marked this foot and then the Shila. About 4 months ago, there was a lot of interest. I can't remember exactly what prompted it. Interest in Govardhana Puja, Govardhana Parikrama. So we did a Govardhana Parikrama. It took about 4 days. And this is just like a little mini in the whole of Govardhana Parikrama. But it's, the essence of the Govardhana Parikrama is pastime. The first of the Govardhana Parikramas was Krishna's arrangement. He personally ordered it and he personally took part in it. Very, very dear to Krishna is Govardhana Hill. We find this in Nectar of Instruction, right? In verse number 8, Nectar of Instruction, some places that are sacred. Vrindavan is most sacred. In Vrindavan, Govardhana is most sacred. In Govardhana, most sacred place is Radhakund. A very sacred place. So next time you go to Vrindavan, make sure you allow ample time to do Govardhana Parikrama. Go with devotees that know the katha of the different places. And it's a good idea to get your feet prepared. Because the pilgrims don't wear shoes. And it can be very wearing on your feet if you don't wear shoes around Govardhana. And sometimes devotees do it in 2 days rather than 1 day. Because it's a long journey. But it's very it's inspirational just to walk around Govardhana Hill and view, always on your right, Govardhana Hill, giving benedictions and inviting your prayers. If you pray to Govardhana in that way, something special happens, because Govardhana is very dear to Krishna in Vrindavan. Let's see if there's some, this is the last slide, see if there's some discussion. You have something?
Maharaj, one question, Maharaj. I think we cannot hear. I need to come there. Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Indra, only question that I have is that Indra was committed offenses several times, punished several times, but still how come that he was keep on committing like offenses?
There's a very simple answer. Pride. And how does pride arise? And here's a mathematical formula. The fruits of piety plus a heart that's impure equals pride. So to go to heaven, there must be lots of piety. What to speak of the king of heaven? Lots of piety. But the heart is not pure just by going to heaven. In fact, one person asked this question another way. Why didn't somebody else get the post of Indra? Because we don't hear all these bad things by other demigods. Indra's really got a problem. So maybe Vishnu selected the wrong person, or Manu selected the wrong person. But anyone that gets opulence and position and something, the door's open for pride if the heart is not pure. And put anybody in that position, and it's going to happen. Even the most pious person. So that's how it happens again and again, because there's pride. And pride becomes curved. And then, it's like grass that gets stepped on, it bows down, but then goes back up again. So, that's why. Until the heart becomes pure. Now you got a lot of mercy, and he's recognized his mistake, etc., etc. But your question is, why does he do it again? Because the pride isn't completely gone. It's contamination. Pride is insidious. Doesn't go away very easily. Beware of pride. It's a beast. You have something back there? Can you fly like a bird? And
You have to come here, take the mic and ask question.
Very nice pictures, Maharaj. So I have one question. Many times in Bhagavatam, we see Maharaj or other kings donating the cows, hundreds of thousands of cows. So it looks like that is a very big number.
Big number.
Yeah, so mind like how, like 5,000 years ago or long ago, how those many cows are maintained, how that's a big number. How do we understand that number? That's the back of my mind. The question is there.
Do you want to know where do they fit?
Yes, something like that. How many people are needed to maintain that?
Oh, I mean, you need a lot of people.
Yeah.
Here's several. This is a nice topic. The spiritual realm is not constricted by our material yardsticks. Two things. There's many things. Here's two things. One is in the pastimes described in chapter 8 and then again in chapter 12, Canto 10. Those are the cowherd boy pastimes. The boys are going out. And our acharyas give a number of how many cows and how many cowherd boys. And it's a really, really big number. And the number of cowherd boys is a samkhitaha. And one of the acharyas gets into, so many zeros make this number, and so many zeros times those, so many zeros make that number, and so many zeros times so many zeros that number. But it gets like off the chart to call it samkhita. That's how many cowherd boys there. So we have a lot of cowherd boys. A lot of cowherd boys. Too many to count. And the trillions. So your question is where they all fit. Then there's another related topic that's in Dwarka. This comes up from time to time. People who read Bhagavatam carefully, they read this number of how many personal bodyguards Ugrasena had. Personal bodyguards. They have to live. They need some living space. And it's like just gargantuan number. Whatever the number, I can't remember, 100 million bodyguards. What to speak of everybody else in their residential quarters. And how big is Florida? Where they all fit. And then, so the answer is, it's very accommodating. It just doesn't match material dimension. They're accommodated because it's a spiritual place. Now, for materialists, they hear that, they go, well, silly. Mythology, or whatever else they may say. They're sentimentalists. But the spiritual realm is without material dimension, and it can expand, or it can contract very easily. And that's an important understanding of Vrindavan and Dwarka and the places of Krishna's pastimes. It's very, time and space are very flexible. To accommodate Krishna's pastimes, time and space are very flexible. Because it's just pastimes in his eternal abode. Now, his pastimes in his eternal abode, worldly people cannot see. Here's like a real simple one. One devotee asked Prabhupada, how did Krishna get all the way from Nandagram to Kali Lake in one morning? And then a messenger went back to Nandagram and informed Nanda Maharaj and came back, and it was still morning. I mean, they didn't have automobiles. So how did they get from one place to another place in such a short time? And the answer is, Prabhupada's answer was, Vrindavan is like a lotus. Sometimes the lotus opens and sometimes it closes. When it closes, the distances get shorter. And that's all he said. The voice go, Haribol. Or here's another one. Another one is the after killing of Shalva. Shalva came to attack Krishna and Dwarka. He came in that vimana, was gifted to him by Varsha, etc. Krishna destroyed him and the vimana. And he hadn't yet gone back into the city of Dwarka because the battle with Shalva took place outside the city of Dwarka. Narada Muni came right at the right time, said, Krishna, guess what? Dantavakra is looking to kill you, and he's right outside of Mathura. So what did Krishna do? A celestial chariot descended, and in a flash, he is outside Mathura confronting Dantavakra. Now he doesn't need a celestial chariot to take him. But he had a pastime. There's so many, again, with the materialists will go, people are silly. And to the mind, it doesn't fit. We have little, binary processor minds that, something that's beyond our binary processor mind just doesn't fit. So how do we process it? That's the question. And, the short answer is Krishna has inconceivable potencies. And through his inconceivable potencies, he does things that we can't do because we don't have those inconceivable potencies. He can expand Vrindavan in such a way he can accommodate all those cows and those who tend the cows and have places of residences and have lots of, they don't have food shortage. Not an overpopulation problem. And then you can contract. and they can even withdraw it. The agency for the inconceivable is Krishna's inconceivable potency. That enables the inconceivable. So it's very flexible. Time and space are very flexible, accommodating Krishna's pastimes.
Thank you so much.
There's an important teaching in Bhagavad Sandarbha. You know what the Sandarbhas are, right? Yes? Anybody here not know what the Sandarbhas are? The Sandarbhas of Jiva Goswami? You don't know? Okay. They're 6 in number, Shat Sandarbhas. And it's describing Sambandhagyan, Abhideya, and Prayojana. And in the Sambandhagyan, there's one section, one of the 6 Sandarbhas is called Bhagavad Sandarbha. Bhagavan. The Sandarbha about Bhagavan, called Bhagavat Sandarbha. And towards the beginning, Jiva Goswami makes this emphatic declaration. In order to understand God, you must accept He has inconceivable potencies. If you do not accept He has inconceivable potencies, you won't be able to understand God. He has inconceivable potencies. And then from that comes inconceivable things. But he's possessed of inconceivable potencies. Achincha Shakti. There's other, so many Sanskrit terms that go along with that. And through those inconceivable potencies, you can do things that even demigods or, a mystic yogi or people can't do. Mystic yogis can do things that people can't do. And Krishna does things mystic yogis can't do. He's the reservoir of all potencies. So that's an essential without that understanding, one cannot understand Krishna. With that understanding, we just go, wow, Krishna's so great. Look how he's using his inconceivable potencies to do inconceivable things. It's just like, and minus God having inconceivable potencies, then come so many mythologies, isn't it? And there's the modern myths, Superman, and whatever all the other ones are. Because there's a natural tendency, but God is missing. And so something takes its place. And then people dismiss God because they say it's mythology, like Superman is mythology. I know some little children, they say, their friends ask them, who is Krishna? And he says, he's better than Superman. They say, oh. But in place of respecting the all-powerful, religions say he's all-powerful. But when you start to get into it, they say he does this, they say he can't do this. Why he can't do this? He's all-powerful. Why he can't do this? Why he can't lift a hill? When he's 7 years old, etc. Yes, he's all-powerful. And he can fit lots of things into a smaller space because it's expandable space by his inconceivable potency. And it's essential conception and truth, because otherwise without it, he's not God. Have you heard I'm just taking this question, going to town, so don't mind me. Have you heard this Stump and Swami question? Is God so powerful that he can create a rock that he can't lift, or an object that he can't lift? You heard that one before? You've heard it before? I didn't know this until I heard one scholar, devotee, describe. It was known in Europe as the argument, one of the linchpin arguments for atheists, to say there's no God. And it goes like this. It's called the stone paradox. Can God create a stone that's so heavy you can't lift it? Because if you say, yes, he can create a stone that's so heavy that he can't lift it, there's something he can't do. He can't lift it. And you say, no, he can't create a stone so heavy he can't lift it, then there's something he can't do.
Both ways.
So it's called the stone paradox, and it's just semantics. But he can create something so heavy he can't lift it, then lift it. Because he has inconceivable potency. And that's the nature of God. That's the Almighty. Now, what does it mean? Well, we measure what it means by our conception of what it means. That's how we measure it. But it's beyond our conception of what it can be. There's no limit. That's part of the majesty of the Almighty Supreme. It's a nice lesson. Takes a while to get used to it. You have something online.
There is one question.
There you go. If I talk long enough, you get something online.
This question is from Amura Devidas Maharaj. The question is, Hare Krishna Maharaj, in Kaliya Lila, it was mentioned that Kaliya lived in Yamuna for many years.
Kali did what?
In Kaliya Lila, it was mentioned that Kaliya lived in Yamuna for many years.
Yes, he did.
When Lord Ananda advises him to go to Yamuna to be saved from Garuda, I am wondering how the cows or anyone did not feel effects of his poison for all those years. Krishna loved to play banks of Yamuna, so how he did not kill Kaliya when Kaliya was staying there for many years? Thank you, Maharaj. By himself.
We'll send a text message to Krishna and ask him. But he may have his phone switched off. It's a pastime, and he's choosing when to do his pastimes. And so, when he went to deal with Kaliya, he was 6. He had just turned 6. We heard that this morning. Just turned 6. So he was, 5. So he did lots of things before he was 6. And that was something he was waiting till he was 6. And he could have done it sooner, but he did it when he was 6. He did it though. Anything else? Here we go. Can you take the microphone?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you so much for a very nice class. Maharaj, in the lecture slides, there was a place where it was written that dog, please satisfy the
It's a
dog.
unidirectional microphone. You have to put it right in front of your eye.
Okay,
There we go.
sorry. So in the slides, there was a point mentioned that let us please satisfy the dog and the dog eaters before we do Parikma. So I was just thinking whether dog eaters would exist at that time as well in Vrindavan.
Good question. Not likely. But he mentions it. So maybe there were. We don't really know. But if there are any, feed them. My understanding is without discrimination about whether they're high or low, feed them. Give them prashadam. That's the essence. Whether there were dog eaters or not dog eaters, and how many, and how they get there in Vrindavan anyways. It's not the main point. The main point is everybody, without just the insects, the birds, everybody should be fed.
Okay.
You've got something else I can tell.
That was really nice. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anyone else in the room? Or we're done? We're done. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai. Brilliant Prabhupada Swami Maharaj ki.
Jai.